Hey everyone, and welcome to this Women's Mental Wellbeing Roundtable. My name is Shirley Blanch. I'm a mindfulness coach and meditation teacher, but I'm also coordinating the women's section of the PHA's Mental Wellbeing Project. And as part of that project, we thought it'd be a great idea to do this roundtable, bring some expert guests on board to talk about some of the unique challenges that we face as women to our mental well-being at different stages in our lives. So we've got some great speakers lined up today, and hopefully at the end of this session you're going to go away feeling a little bit more empowered over your own health and well-being, no matter what stage you're at in your life. We've got three wonderful speakers today. Amanda's got some things on at the moment that she's dealing with, so she is going to be jumping back in, but at the moment I'm going to get our other two speakers to introduce themselves. You might already be familiar with them, but for those who aren't, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. I'm going to come to the wonderful Nickita Starck first of all. Hi, Nickita.
Thank you so much for having me on this round table.
It's lovely to have you here.
My name's Nickita Starck, and I am founder of When Push Comes to Shove, which is a decentralized maternity structure, holistic maternity structure. I've been a birth practitioner for 15 years, and I'm an author. I'm also currently doing my PhD in lifestyle medicine, and I specialize in birth physiology, navigating the system, and mental health.
That's fantastic. There's a lot there. You've got a lot of skills there. So we're really looking forward to finding out more. You're going to be sort of talking a little bit about birth and reproductive years for us and some of the challenges we face in those today. So that's going to be really fantastic. And the wonderful Rebecca, who's going to be talking to us more about menopause, moving into another stage of our lives. So welcome to the Women's Mental Wellbeing Roundtable, Rebecca.
Thank you for inviting me. What a pleasure. And lovely to meet you, Nickita, Shirley, and Amanda when she's here. So I've been a homeopath for 30 years. I've spent over 20 years volunteering in South African townships. I am actually, interestingly, Nickita, running, and I've taught many doulas, midwives, homeopathy for use in pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. And I'm going to be running a course very soon with the birth keepers. I've got so many NGOs that are coming at my ears, schools and bishops and pastors that I look after, teach. And yeah, I love homeopathy. I'm totally passionate about it. I really would love people to understand it more and use less pharmaceutical poisonous drugs and more homeopathic. I will do a little explanation before I get into the remedies that I would recommend for menopause.
Okay, that's absolutely fantastic. Amanda is going to be joining us. She is going to be covering for us, coming to terms with aging and coming to terms with our own mortality, I guess, is what we're going to be looking at with her. But I'm going to get her to introduce herself when she joins us. So let's go first of all to you, Nickita. What I really wanted to ask you is, I'm really fascinated about how our own birth experience affects our life and whether it actually does have an impact on our own lives, because we sort of, when we talk about birthing, I think we think very much about when we're going to become mothers, maybe. But how does our own birth experience, how does our experience coming into this world affect our life, or does it?
It certainly does. And it's a bit of a chicken or the egg situation. So let me just back up and explain often where trauma comes from in the first place. So let's take it on a linear level first, on a very 3D level. Yes, birth affects us and our mental health. So when you are in your mother's womb, her cortisol and adrenaline levels will certainly affect you throughout pregnancy. That is not to shame anyone who is stressed. We're all going to be stressed at some point, but the idea is having tools to have inner peace no matter what ensues on the outside. But we can get into that a bit later. During birth itself, the main hormone involved is oxytocin, which is a love hormone. Just stroking your arm will release oxytocin. But in order for oxytocin to release sufficiently, you need to feel safe, loved, wise.
Wow.
It's very, very important that your environment is conducive to releasing that oxytocin. So let's go back a few thousand years, and the reason why oxytocin is so important. Imagine you were just a nomad wandering the tundra, and then you see a predator, and it's a toothy, bitey, scary thing, and you think, oh God, that's going to eat me. So it can't be safe to go into labor. So what happens is you release adrenaline. And adrenaline will make all that rich oxygenated blood leave the uterus and go to your arms and legs, your extremities, ready to fight or flight or freeze. So adrenaline will interrupt the oxytocin process. Now, we may not have the same stimuli so much anymore, but we still release adrenaline in labor because of the environmental or the emotional stimuli around us. So things that stimulate adrenaline in 2024, hospital environment, bright lights, feelings of being observed, strangers putting their hands inside you, BP machines, hearing other women giving birth can stimulate adrenaline. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't have a hospital birth. I'm very, very pro natural and home birth, but what I'm even more pro is choice. And I don't believe that home is right for everyone. You should never, ever give birth somewhere that you don't feel safe. So safety, a feeling of safety is optimal to release the lovely oxytocin. A baby should be born into a sea of oxytocin, not adrenaline, not cortisol. But to make it a little bit more complicated, so babies are made in love, hopefully, and born in love. But then you can have very serious trauma in conceiving the baby, such as rape. Now let's go away from the 3D and the linear process, and let's see how nuanced this is. So we also have generational trauma, and our ancestors will have experienced things in life that will continue through our cellular memory, and our cells will vibrate at a certain pace. Now, they did a study on rats, and they had these rats in a cage with a door open, and every time the rat tried to leave, they'd get an electric shock, and eventually they stopped trying to leave. More interestingly, those rats had babies, and they put the babies in another cage, and they never tried to leave. So I think the root of healing, like I always say to women, it's really important to educate yourself in birth, understand birth physiology, your rights, how to navigate the system, but that alone is superficial. We need to do the inner work first to release not just generational trauma, but our own childhood trauma. So to put it in a nutshell, this is often how our lives pan out. So when we're born, we are the most authentic we will ever be. We have a connection to divine source. We express ourselves accordingly. But very often, our parents are emotionally immature, and they do not have the tools to deal with an authentic child. Now, a child will have two choices, authenticity or an attachment. And they will go for an attachment every single time, because an attachment keeps that child alive. So when a child starts expressing their anger, for example, it's very common for a parent to go, stop behaving like that. It makes me feel like this. There are 3 general core wounds for women. I'm not enough, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And you might hear the word trauma and think it is something horrific, like sexual abuse or witnessing a murder, but it's much more subtle than that a lot of the time. I'm not saying those big traumas don't exist, of course they do. But let's take fear of rejection. A child is being really authentic. Mummy, I want to play with you, I want to play with you. I'm busy. I'm looking at my phone. I'm doing my work. That is a trauma of rejection or abandonment. Now, the parents may not physically leave, but if they're not emotionally present and they're not able to regulate their own emotions, that child will start building this script, this inner dialogue inside them, and it will perpetuate throughout life. So when I get women who come to me and say, my midwife has made me feel like this, the midwife has not made her feel like that. She has chosen to react like that because she's not aware of her inner script that she's got going on. She's handed over her power to someone else to create that feeling within her. And we end up creating these egoic archetypes because we have chosen an attachment over authenticity. Now, these egoic archetypes can look like the givers, so victims. This always happens to me, typical. Oh, why me again? It can be the bleeding empath. It can be a martyr. I'll put everyone before me. All these egoic archetypes they shouldn't be judged. It's just discernment we need to use here. The egoic archetypes present as a shield. We even get the controllers, the helicopters. Everyone knows someone who they're always there hovering, making sure other people are doing the things they want in order for them to get inner peace. But really, we've got it arse over tit. It has to start from within. But people aren't aware of this, generally speaking. So in order to have the good birth and understand what's going on, I had a lady come to me once and said, I don't understand. I did all the birth preparation. I learned everything about birth. I knew how to navigate the system. I knew my rights, but I would not dilate. And she was giving birth in a hospital. She had a lot of people around her. And I asked her, when in life were you viewed? When were you being observed and you felt uncomfortable and it felt wrong? And she said, I was raped when I was 15 in a car, watching me. And I thought, well, there you go.
So that all makes so much sense. But somebody listening who thinks, okay, well, maybe I've done that, I've gone through that, I've experienced that, and I've got these sort of traumas. Are there any sort of practical tips you could give people today to sort of start to release those traumas, some things that they could take away from today's roundtable that they could put into practice in their lives, so that not only are they healing themselves, but they're kind of making sure that they're not passing that on, as you said, in a form of generational trauma?
It's actually quite simple. The root of all human suffering is an attachment to an outcome. Wow. So just knowing that is really good and can balance you. But here's some practical steps, right? And it depends how you need to know your own superpower. But I'll give a tip which is good for kinesthetic, auditory, and visual people. You got to feel. We spend most of our life in resistance. We don't want to feel feelings. We don't want to feel anxious. And we're constantly trying to fix things in our own strength, when really the answer is surrender. So, and when I say surrender, that doesn't mean submit. They're two totally different things. So let's say, for example, you've been triggered. You're scrolling through social media and you've seen a post that suggests C-sections can cause gut health issues in children because they're not seeded with the microbiome. And a lot of people react to this instead of respond. They think, oh, I had a C-section. That's personal to me. That's a dig. Obviously, it's not, but you've seen it like that because that's a trauma response. You feel that your birthright has been taken from you, or whatever it is, whatever the script is. So do this. Instead of trying to resist the feeling and attack, because what happens is if we don't heal, we end up bleeding over people that didn't cut us. So what I would suggest is feel it. Number one, step one, so easy, name the feeling. Can you name it? Is it dread? Is it resentment? Is it anger? Where in your body do you feel it? Is it in your throat chakra? Is it in your heart, your solar plexus? Feel it. Don't resist it. We have an automatic, that feels horrible, I need to soothe. Soothing is not healing. Every time we go outside ourselves, now it's great we've got all these modalities like Reiki and massage and reflexology or whatever it is, because it can help us consolidate our healing. But really, the answer is never out there, ever. And if anyone says otherwise, think always from within. I feel really uncomfortable. Feel how uncomfortable you are, because our feelings are an amazing teacher if we just let them appear. The idea is you've got to get underneath the feeling and you will surprise yourself. When you start doing it, you might feel it for quite a long time, but after you keep getting re-triggered and re-triggered and re-triggered, you'll feel the feelings and they'll dissolve. All it is a mirror. You haven't worked on this yet. Like, let's say, for example, you've got a fear of abandonment, and every bugger that comes into your life makes you feel that, be it a partner or a teacher or a boss. You're manifesting this, not consciously, but you are subconsciously looking for familiar. And if your core wound and the familiar is, I'm going to feel abandoned, I need to protect myself against this, you're going to see it over and over and over again. But when you stop and you become empowered rather than a victim, you will actually have time to sit there and feel your feelings, to transcend them. When you start the healing process, the triggers come up left, right, and center. But then something remarkable happens. You look forward to a trigger because you think, this isn't scary. This is a growth opportunity for me.
And it's giving you an idea to find out more about yourself. It's almost looking at the monster under the bed, isn't it? And actually confronting it and realizing that it's not as bad as you thought it was. And you're quite right. You know, what resists persists. What we resist persists. And allowing those things to come up, moving from resistance into acceptance. It's fantastic. You've given us some really great ideas there. Thank you so much. And I think people will be able to go away and really rethink about maybe what their own triggers are and start to notice them as a positive, because it can start to reveal to us more about who we are and some of the things that we've developed, some of the coping strategies we've developed in our own lives.
Why not? So when people start this journey, they might get into their head about it and go, oh my God, I'm bringing this on myself. Try not to attach a story, because you're perpetuating a script. So just see it as an impartial viewer. Let the thought pass. Don't hook into it. You hook into it. Look, we think we've got a million problems, but we've only got one, and that's a separation from ourselves, our authentic.
Brilliant. Love that, because it's really mindful. Become the observer of your experience, notice it with interest, and be compassionate to yourself. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Nickita. Really great information there. Rebecca, if we can come on to you now. I think there's a lot of awareness around menopause. There's almost too much sometimes, I think, that we become hypervigilant and expect to have things happening to us that may not. But I still think that there's not maybe enough around the mental well-being impact of menopause. I still think that there's not enough information about that. I certainly know I know people who develop a real fear of driving, for instance, in menopause, who will actually actively avoid going on motorways, dual carriageways even. And there's little things like that which they never really associated with menopause. What would you say are some of the key mental well-being impacts of menopause that you kind of notice with your clients?
First of all, thank you, Nickita. Great information. I loved it. So if you don't mind, Shirley, I'm just going to try and give a bit of a picture of homeopathy, because I've only been back in the UK for 9 months, and I find it astounding that people don't actually understand it at all. It's been so suppressed in this country. So that's why I wanted to give a little bit of preface so you understand why I come with the information I've got.
Yeah, brilliant.
So homeopathy is vibrational medicine, which is the first thing that people go, don't get that. But if we consider Nikola Tesla, who said, everything in life is energy, vibration, or frequency. Homeopathy is vibrational frequency medicine. That's all it is. And all a homeopath is trying to do is find the individual. We only work with the individual. You can come to me and say, I've got menopause, I've got this, but I want to know what your symptoms are, not what the blanket symptoms are. So we look at the physical, the mental, emotional, spiritual, ancestral patterns that are running through that individual. And we work with that, which is called holism. So that means looking at the whole picture. So we work with ancestral trauma. I treat people with things that are coming from their grandparents, obviously, because you can see the pattern running. And I give remedies to change that. And you're absolutely correct, Nickita. If you don't feel it, you can't heal it. And one of the things I've noticed with homeopathic remedies, when people come to me with great, you know, for me, it's like a spiritual disturbance, that I will give the vibrational remedy that matches them, and they will think a new thought, which is like another door opens. It's actually incredible to hear these things. So how I want to describe the vibrational process is we find the remedy that matches the individual. And if you can imagine a tone, a musical tone, and you match that musical tone with the exact tone, it negates it. There's nothing there. That is exactly how homeopathy works. It finds the frequency that you're at. Not everybody who's got menopause, it doesn't work like that. It's individual medicine. And as you spoke of, Nickita, we work with inherited trauma, ancestral trauma. We don't just look or sound like our ancestors. We bring all sorts in through our birthing. So what I decided to do is I would look at the 3 headline remedies of over 150 for menopause. So it's not like I've only got a couple to choose from,
Wow,
which
that's a lot.
allopathy, frankly, only does. I've got lots. So I'm looking at, oh, and one thing I wanted to bring into this conversation is I love the book Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkolas Estes. I use it as a healing tool within my practice. I recommend chapters. I actually studied this book for a year, which was phenomenal. So I either read the story to my patients, get them to read it. That learning through these soul stories is really powerful through times of transition, which we cannot avoid, ladies and gentlemen. So the first remedy I wanted to talk to you about is Sima Sifuga, which is, everything in homeopathy is Latin. So that's black cohosh, and probably you've heard of it before if you've looked into menopausal symptoms. So I'm going to give you the mental, emotional, spiritual picture of Sima Sifuga. And what I want you to do while I'm reading these 3 different remedies out, I want you to just think of women you know, might even be you. It's going to freak you out a little bit, ladies, because I'm going to give you a picture. So, Sima Sifuga mental, emotional, spiritual picture is moody, gloomy. There's a black cloud over everything. She thinks she's going crazy. She's loquacious. Oh, and this is wrong with me. This is wrong with me. This is wrong with me. She's hypochondriacal. She's nervous. Fidgety. She sighs. She's got a foggy mind during headaches. I know you asked for only mental picture, but you need to understand that with that is the physical picture, which is hot flushes. The pain moves from hip to hip. It cuts across. Very specific, as you can see. It's not just, we really get into the individual. They're intolerant of the pain. The more the flow, so if they are having a bit of flow, the more the pain. They're hysterical with their moon time. I call menses moon time. I always have. I much prefer it. Their moon time is profuse. They have back pains and muscular and cramping pains. So that's a very little picture of Sima Sifuga. I'm sure all of us can think of somebody a little bit like that in our lives. I hope it's not you, frankly. Lachesis, so homeopathy can use poisons because we dilute everything. Lachesis is the venom of the bushmaster snake. So as you can imagine, the mental, emotional, spiritual picture of this person is angry, violent. They lash out, they strike like a snake, and their words are venomous, they're nasty. They want revenge. They can be nymphomaniacal. They're depressed, worse since the menopause. They are grief-stricken. Again, great loquacity. One story leads into another story. Yibba yabba jibba jabba. They're manic. They're manic for work. They're manic for shopping. They're manic for spending money. They have a fear of snakes, a fear of sleep, and they fear going insane. They may have a religious insanity, please God help me, please God help me, and they could be alcoholics as well. And the physical picture of this individual is hot flushes or cold flushes. They have high blood pressure. This is a big heart remedy. palpitations, hemorrhages, headaches, fainting spells, prolapsed uterus during menopause. Again, this is a big hormonal remedy, and they are better for flow. So during their moon time, as soon as the flow comes, all the hectic stops. It's a remarkable remedy. The less flow, the more pain, and they have a violent pain in their left ovaries. So this is 2 of the over 150 remedies that a homeopath can use. They are non-toxic, no side effects. They do not harm the environment. It's been around for over 250 years, and it is slammed because it's the second most used healing modality in the world. You won't know that. Nobody wants to tell you that. But anyway, let's move on to my final remedy. Sepia, which is made from cuttlefish ink. This is a massive hormonal remedy, and you'll understand this when I finish explaining it to you. So again, mental, emotional, and spiritual picture. They are irritable, angry. They want to run away. They have no desire for sex. They don't dig their husband anymore. They blame, they scold, they are detached, they're hard and indifferent. They are averse to company, as I say, her husband, her children, her family, basically, just want to be alone. And basically, they're afraid of the internal changes that are happening inside them, and they feel empty. There's an empty feeling with sepia. The physical picture of sepia is they have never been well since puberty, childbirth, hormone pills. We treat a lot of that. I have to treat so much allopathy that has poisoned the individual. They have a bearing down sensation. They have to keep their legs crossed to hold it all in. They feel like everything's going to fall out. Just a very brief story. I've been running courses for years. I teach a lot. And I had a whole bunch of women around I love it around a kitchen table. I just think it's so much fun. And this woman had quite a lot of pregnancies quite quickly after the other. I think she was in her 4th pregnancy, and she'd sort of had a pregnancy every 1.5 years, which is quite intense for the body. And she's heavily pregnant, sitting around my table, and she goes to the toilet, and she's literally like walking a bit like that with her legs crossed. You can't see my legs are crossed. And I said, what's going on? She said, I'm really scared the baby and everything's going to fall out. I said, here, try a dose of sepia. She took a dose of sepia, went to the loo, had her wee, came back and said, I feel absolutely different. It was,
wow.
I couldn't believe it. One little, I've got so many stories like that. So anyway, they think their uterus or vagina is prolapsing. And like I say, they could have had many pregnancies or quick succession of pregnancies. They have flashes of heat with perspiration, which is worse at night. And again, this fainting tendency. So as I say, this is just 3 of over 150 remedies that I can choose from to support the individual. I hope that helps you understand homeopathy a little bit more and give it a go. It's so gentle, it's so elegant. I highly recommend it, of course.
That's amazing, because there's a lot of crossovers, I think, with what Nickita said there, because it's about coming into alignment, isn't it? It's about coming into vibrational alignment, letting go of resistance, and finding something that's going to help you to do that. And it's another way of doing it. And you're completely right. Although this is part of our mental well-being program, so we're running a mental well-being roundtable, it's very difficult for me, and I sort of come from a healing background as well, to separate the mental and the physical health, because they're completely integrated. But what I wanted to, yeah, exactly. What I wanted to ask you though, for somebody like listening to this who maybe thinks, well, look, that sounds great, and I'd love to go and be able to afford to go to a homeopath and have that treatment. Could they access those remedies themselves? Could they do something themselves, or is it really, would they need to be very specific? But they could give it a go, couldn't they? If they can't come and see somebody and have a consultation.
Do you know what? I find it absolutely hysterical, this expense to see a homeopath. I honestly cannot believe what I hear. Unfortunately, what I believe after being away for over 20 years in a third world country working in townships. The people of the UK, no disrespect, love you, I'm British too, mates. But this illusion that healthcare is free because of the NHS is a lie, my darlings. You pay for it. And I do not see in my practice of over 30 years that I get people coming in here on 5, 10 different allopathic drugs, Shirley.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Half of them are side effects for the other thing. And I say to them, how long have you been on them? Sometimes 30 years.
Yeah.
And I say, oh, and I give a homeopathic remedy and they start, I've got a woman at the moment with asthma. She's been on drugs for years and years. She's playing tennis again. All I did was add in the remedy. I didn't take her off of anything.
I agree with you.
So obviously these drugs aren't working. I'm sorry, people who think their health is expensive have lost their effing minds.
I do agree, but I think it is an obstacle that people, you know, think for themselves and put in their way to stop them maybe trying those things. But I totally agree.
I like the Helios kit, and in there you have a phone number and you can call the Helios helpline, tell them your symptoms, and they will help.
They can't do that as much as they used to do. We have been, I used to work for Helios. We get, what are they called? Like trollers at Helios who, if you say the wrong thing, you're buggered. So we get struck out. So homeopathy is seriously and has been for a very long time under attack. It's seriously under attack. What people can do is I teach homeopathy to lay people. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I want people using homeopathy all the time. However, in an acute, you can learn it yourself. You can work it out. If the first remedy doesn't work, go to the second remedy. However, in chronic dis-ease, that's when you need someone like me with 30 years experience, because I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm doing, I hope, most of the time.
Yeah.
So I would say you can, I mean, like I said, there's over 150, homeopathy is really easy, but it's really complicated, but only when it's a chronic. And often it's I can't treat myself. I have my own homeopath. Yeah. I can't see clearly myself. Yeah. You know, is it possible?
I know homeopaths and they always have their own homeopath. And I think you make such a great point, but knowledge is power, isn't it? And the more knowledge that we get out of there and the more empowered people become over their own health and well-being by doing things like this, the more confidence it gives people to go out and learn and try different things that they maybe hadn't considered before. And I think that that's what's so amazing.
So just one last point is responsibility. I feel like people are not, like you were saying about Nickita, you were saying about the outside, like it's their fault, it's my mum's fault, it's my dad, whatever. Actually, we're the ones, like you say, it's in us, we have to deal with it. And this self-responsibility of not just going to the doctor and handing it all over and okay, I'll take this. You know, like what feels right for you? Work with your diet. You know what's good and bad for you. Like, come on, it doesn't take much. And so for me, it's about self-responsibility. And that is empowering.
Yeah, trauma is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Some brilliant advice there, Rebecca, and really inspiring and empowering. Thank you so much. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lovely to have you along. So I got Nickita and Rebecca to introduce themselves. If you'd like to introduce yourself now and tell us a little bit about what you do, that would be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And I've loved so far. I've been able to listen to everything whilst dealing with an emergency at home. So I've been thrilled and inspired by everybody and how that's all linking in a really beautiful way. Because I'm looking at things which are towards the end of life. You mentioned about me doing something around aging as well, which I will do. That's part of it. As we come into the end of life, as in our later years, often we are then caring for elder parents. We are then also looking at how do we support someone when they're dying, thinking about our own death and dying. So my background and the reason why I'm passionate and work in very different ways to most people is I am a celebrant, a funeral celebrant. I am a author and filmmaker on dignity in dying, on all aspects of care for the elderly. I set up the Dignity in Care campaign for the government, and my passion has started from a little girl where I used to sing to the dying when I was 8 years old. Yeah. So my grandmother used to take me to all of the places, and I worked at the Royal Hospital and Home for Incurables as it was then. And for some reason, as a child, I've been woven in with death, which doesn't necessarily sound like a great thing to be doing. However, what it does mean for me is that the power of being able to be with yourself, and this ties in with Nickita and Rebecca, being able to be with yourself as other parts of you die, whether that's physically at end of life or whether we choose to be with those parts of ourselves and let them die. But the die means that it needs, you said about the feeling, it also needs the honoring as well. There's an element of an honoring. There's an element of that honoring, which is in processing. And if you like, when we're physically dying, that is what we're doing with a ceremony. And for me, when I'm creating a funeral, I will often do funerals that are before someone dies, a celebration of life, because why do we wait? Why do we wait? So we wish we could be at our own funeral. Well, you can. There's no rules. There's no regulations. Who's saying that? So I absolutely adore to be able to create. And often people look at me and think, that's morbid. That's awful. I said, no, this is recognizing the legacy that each one of us has, the healing that we've gone through to adjust to what we have experienced in our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know. But actually what it does is it gives people a chance to connect together in community, celebrating that individual while they are there, while they are living. So all of that love that you wish you could have said, that, oh, why did I leave it too late? Well, you won't have to leave it too late, because we'll have provided that space, that place, that opportunity to celebrate amongst the heartache, not taking away the grief, but at the same time, the relief that comes later when the individual has passed. What is left isn't the sterile feeling of a funeral. It is the joyous feeling of a party and a life well celebrated. And so partly my work and you know, all aspects of my work is done via the spiritual aspect, the emotional aspect, and looking at ways to help people to think a bit differently outside of the box when it comes to our own aging and when it comes to supporting the aging of another. And also to release some of that fear around aging. You know, can we wear old age as a crown instead of a burden? You know, when I walk with and work with children, for example, you know, all aspects of our aging needs to be honored from birth to death and beyond. And I write sacred poetry and create meditations and songs that allow people to understand in a kind of gentle, creative way the concept of what that feels like to be welcomed and then to be welcomed again, and to release the grief and to stand in your power, and then to let go of your power to be welcomed and held again. And I think what my vision with how, you know, the PHA and everything else that you're working with, all the women's organizations that are coming together, is, like we've said, it's about self-sovereignty. It's recognizing the stages in advance so we don't just suddenly let them hit us. We see ourselves as holistic being. We look at ourselves as a holistic being that is going to come into all aspects of our ages. And how do we hold ourselves through that? So for me, part of the work that I did around elder care, especially, was because of the lack of care that my mother received. She had a terrible death. Basically, she was a very well-known actress, my mum, and she was treated not because she was, you know, a famous actress that anyone needs to be treated differently, but the way she was treated in a certain hospital just shocked me to the core. It was as if she was invisible, demoralized staff barely making eye contact with her. There was no connection. There was no interaction. And my mum said she felt like a caged animal. She had leukemia at the age of 70. And both my grandmothers had lived till 100 and 101.
Wow.
So I also had that shock of the experiencing of, from my point of view, an early death. And I actually did use homeopathy for my mum beautifully, beautifully. And she did live for another year and a half. And the hospital themselves acknowledged that the German homeopathy that I was using for her had actually incredibly helped her as well. So that was very interesting to have that. But at mum's death, you know, she was terrified, and some of you might recognize this as you're older, looking after older people. She was terrified that if I said anything about her treatment, that she would somehow be, her treatment would be worse, take it out on her. And when we age and when we're looking after older people, there can be a degree of frailty, you know. But my mum didn't have dementia. She didn't have any mental health issues other than the shock of a terminal illness. And so I actually waited till my mum died before being able to create something, which is a film called What Do You See? I was a single mum, and I sold my flat in order to make this film. Everyone said, "What are you doing?" But I had to do something because I'd seen so many times in hospitals where elders in particular, and elder women even more in particular, were treated rudely with a lack of respect, invisible, unseen, not valued, not seen in their entirety. So when I made this film, I actually made it in the hospital where my mum had died. And I went to Gordon Brown at the time, this was over 20 years ago now. And I said, we have to put dignity at the heart of care. And that's where I set up the Dignity and Care campaign, which has many 500,000 dignity champions. So I teach and teach around the world with my films. And since that time, I've written books on caring, the heart of care, and the being a good carer, which shows us as individuals, as a society, it's no good we complaining that we don't have people to care for us when we're older. Because we can complain and complain and complain, but until we take action, until we decide how do we reintegrate this into communities, how does the kind of tribal nature of caring for each other, where no one is left behind. Whereas if we, again, like we've said before, if you hand over power to the big organizations and the big organizations fail, what have you got to replace that? What are we building? And this is my hope for being part of this beautiful collaboration of amazing women, is to not only take our full circle of, okay, we may have, not necessarily, if we follow our dietary rules, if we follow homeopathy, if we look at clearing our ancestral lines, you're going to be a lot healthier than you could possibly imagine. And my vision is that we are able to die in a way that isn't managed by medication, that our death is seen as a natural rite of passage again, and that we are, you know, where we over-medicate and over-medicate and over-medicate to keep somebody constantly alive, we are possibly, and again, this comes down to the individuals. This is not saying this is about an individual choice, but it's also saying, but why are we concentrating on the medication and keeping someone alive, then giving them an alternative to how is a good way to die? How can we heal the parts of us that are full of regrets? How can we heal the part of us that doesn't know how to mend the bridges between other siblings? How can we share secrets if we need to before dying? How can that part of us, the body dies, but all the other parts that are vibrating, like you said, with the medicine that's singing with this, I need to unburden, or I need to be held, or I need to be remembered, or I need to know. Let me see, let me feel. And people often shun people that are dying because often they think it's catching. Often. I mean, obviously there are some things which are going to, that is there, but all during COVID, one of the things I set up was, so it's devastating taking the funerals during COVID with just a few people there without enough holding of their grief. But I've done collective grief ceremonies for communities, and I work with individuals, and I'll take many people to the sea as a collective grieving process. And I'll work with with grief and peace and aspects that's all tying in with death and dying, and how do we find peace in ourselves, that inner peace before our passing. And in an ideal world, the conversations that we should have in childhood, for all women, should be around exactly that: birth, maidenhood, beautifully written in Clarissa Pinkola Estes' Women in the World's amazing stories in that to help you as well. The menopause cycle, mother, maiden, child, crone, and the cronedom. And that cronedom is like a kingdom. Yes, there are steps to get through to that wisdom, but what I hope to do is to awaken women to find their power, their passion, their voice at later life. I'm 60 years old, so I am. 20 years ago, I was campaigning for the elderly. I'm old now on some levels. But don't forget, we all hold the ages that we've ever been.
Yeah, I love that.
We don't suddenly become an old person, and we are constantly growing. When I work with people through menopause as well, at times, I'll say, we're growing, we're still growing. In fact, we're growing faster. We're cutting off some of the dead wood that we need to cut off so we can grow, so that we can come into that natural state of, we're not all immediately wise gurus. However, we have the wisdom of experience. And that wisdom of experience is powerful.
And it's an evolution, isn't it?
Yes.
I think to see aging as an evolution,
yes,
it's just a different way of seeing it. And because I think it's also the society that we inhabit, specifically here in the UK and in the West, where everything is anti-aging.
Yeah.
So much rhetoric is, you've got to stay young, it's youth, and we want to be clinging on to youth and anti-aging this and all that kind of thing. And to me, it's like a resistance, because you're in resistance to the natural process of aging. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. So if you could give people sort of one takeaway today, somebody who's sort of maybe got a real fear around death, or fear of aging is a fear of death, essentially, isn't it? I think it comes down to that. Is there one thing you could sort of say to help somebody maybe reset there? You've said so much already, but just to sort of encapsulate it, what would you say to somebody who's out there feeling quite anxious?
I'm gonna sing.
Oh, go for it. That's amazing.
All right. So if you just all want to close your eyes, and those of you that are listening, and this is just about bringing in peace for your internal heart, you're giving yourself a space of peace and a space of a moment to release and to bring in love. May there be peace in your east, and peace in your west. May there be peace in your north, and peace in your south. May there be peace without, and peace within, as your journey of peace begins, as your journey of life it brings, as your journey of love it sings. Take a beautiful breath, deep breath in through your heart and out through the back of your heart. Imagine that a door is opening and you're just releasing that heartache, that worrying, that could have, should have, would have, I'm not enough, all those beautiful expressions that Nickita shared. Empty them out into Mother Earth and close that door behind your heart very softly, keeping the peace within. I hope that has helped.
Oh, I think that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Don't worry, I'm not going to get everyone to sing. We'll stick with that. Listen, it's gone so quickly and we've had so much amazing information today. Does anybody want to just share any other insights that they've got before we go today?
I want to come live with Amanda.
I know.
Oh, you're welcome.
She's only down the road from me, so I'm going to pop in and get her
yes.
to sing. Yeah, fantastic.
Come and be. I run retreats from my home, and you can stay with me. You literally can live with
Yay.
me. So
Yay.
yeah, I would love to see all of you in person for sure. We definitely will get together.
So okay, so let's wrap this up now. We talked about some of the challenges of being a woman, and but what I want to do is I want to finish on a really positive note and talk about what the amazing benefits, what's so wonderful about going through life as a woman. And again, we're going to go chronologically, so I'm going to come to Nickita. Some just last thoughts, Nickita, on what's so great about being a woman.
What isn't great about being a woman? Look, we're the divine feminine healers. The way I see it, we are the water that flows through the river, and the men are the banks. And we have to know each other's divine role. And I think we just need to remember who we are. If you don't go within, you will go without. So go within, remember who you are. You are not an individual wave in the ocean. You are the ocean. So go downstream and just, I can't say it enough, remember who you are, go within, know thyself, and peace on earth begins at birth.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Rebecca, how about you?
Oh, Nickita, that was beautiful. So when you mentioned you were going to ask this question, the best thing for me about being a woman is my children. I feel honored that I can give life and nurture life, and all of the things that you said, Nickita, I totally agree with. But for me, it is the ability to bring life, which is the feminine role, supported by the masculine role, as you said, the banks and the river within. So for me, I only can honor the fact that I have been able to bring life into this world, and I am so honored.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rebecca. How about you, Amanda?
Well, for me, for a woman, and everything that everyone has said is really beautiful. I'm going to go a bit beyond that, because I think there are many women that can't bring birth, can't give birth, choose not to give birth as well. And I think as a voice for those women as well, it is about the fact, being a woman, that we have creativity running through our waters. And actually to be able to allow the expression of ourselves through our waters, through our blood, through our whatever aspect of us, we have the gift of communication. We have the gift of sacred action. We have the gift of being able to feel the softness of Mother Earth beneath our feet. And we have the ability to connect and create with Mother Earth, as all children do, as all men do. But we have the ability to communicate that through our being, I feel, as well. There's an extra resonance and an essence that is a vibration, that when we are connected to the deep mother, and we allow the deep mother through us, whether we've had children or not had children, whether we are living or in the process of transformation, because I don't even think of dying as dying. For me, it is transformation. So the joy of being a woman needs to be expressed more. The joy is there. There's pain. There's all kinds of things that we go through that are painful. But the joy is, like you said, what's not to love? The joy is we have the freedom internally of expression. And even if there's external that doesn't allow for that, the internal, you are always free.
Amazing. Thank you so much. One of the things I think is so amazing about being a woman is having the support of other women, and having that community and that connection and that vulnerability to be able to talk about these things. And that's what I really love about it. And that's what I think we've expressed so well here today. I'm so grateful for all of you coming along here and sharing your time, taking time out of your busy days, especially you, Amanda, when I know you've got, you've had lots of drama happening for you this morning and you still found time to be here. That's incredible. Thank you so much. I just want everybody to know where they can find out more about your work. So Nickita, if I come to you first, where can people find out more about what you do?
Sure, just go to www.whenpushcomestosshove.co.uk. You'll be able to find birth practitioners in your area, trained to become a birth practitioner. Also check out the Unity Project, which is about healing core wounds. I'm running an amazing workshop next month called Heal Her. It's a 5-hour workshop to go inside, remember who you are, and let go of all the external rubbish. So yeah, come and find me at whenpushcomestosshove.co.uk. Thank you.
Fabulous. Rebecca?
I'm Rebecca-Sturgeon.com. I work from Bath Natural Remedies and Bradford-on-Avon. I also do a lot of online work, and I'm teaching for the PHA homeopathy for carers of the elderly later. I think it's October I'm doing that. And I'm also doing a birth keeper's a homeopathic journey as well, for some other birth keepers in South Africa, actually. So I'm very busy giving lectures. I'm also lecturing about 5G this week, actually.
Okay, fabulous, amazing stuff. And Amanda, where can people find out more about what you do?
Oh, well, so you could go to amandawaring.com. That's waring.com. Also, you can go to my other website, which deals more perhaps with elder care specifically, and care is theheartofcare.co.uk, and that's where you can access my films and books as well. Also, my YouTube channel, which is Amanda Waring Films. So at the moment, what I'm working on very much is another aspect of work I do, which is for world peace. And so I've just set up a movement which will be launched on the International Day of Peace. So for people to look out for that, please, would be really good. And I'm running women's retreats from here. So I have, if you go on my website, there'll be the details about that. And that's all about empowering women. It is all about, again, using water, using sound healing, which is also what I do, and giving women space to rest, restore in nature. And I do a lot of online workshops for those about compassion and communication and care of the elderly. So Rebecca, yes, everything, all of us, I feel like what an amazing kind of, all four corners covered. I love it. Yes. So there we go. Sorry, waffled.
No, it's all wonderful. It's all great stuff. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking time out of your busy days to join me today. Thanks for everybody who's been watching and listening. I hope you take away something that can be helpful in your everyday life, some practical tip that you can take away from today that's going to make your life a little bit better, so you feel a bit more empowered going through your life as a woman. If you want to find out more about what the PHA does, you can obviously go to the website, thepha.org, and find out more about the mental wellbeing project that we're running, because it is really incredible. And have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing everybody soon. In the meantime, do take care. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.